What happens if the Strait of Hormuz closes? Every day, nearly 1/5 of the world's oil passes through a narrow stretch of water. If that route were ever blocked, the global economy wouldn't just slow down, it could be thrown into chaos. This is the Strait of Hormuz. At its narrowest point, the Strait of Hormuz is only about 21 miles wide. It sits between Iran to the north and Oman to the south, and it connects the Persian Gulf to the open ocean. It doesn't look like much, but inside this narrow passage flows one of the most important lifelines on Earth. Every single day, massive oil tankers move through this strait, carrying millions of barrels of oil from countries like Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Kuwait, the United Arab Emirates. Together, these exports make up nearly 20% of global oil supply. That means nearly 1 out of every 5 barrels of oil in the world passes through this one location. And it's not just oil. Natural gas, refined fuels, and other critical energy resources also depend on this route. Which means, if this narrow passage slows down, the entire system feels it. Countries across the world rely on this flow. In Asia, nations like China, India, Japan, and South Korea depend heavily on oil coming through this strait. In Europe, the effects are indirect but just as real, because when oil supply is disrupted anywhere, prices rise everywhere. And that's what makes the Strait of Hormuz different. This isn't just a regional shipping lane, it's a global choke point. And here's where things get complicated. The Strait of Hormuz sits in one of the most politically tense regions in the world. Iran controls the northern coastline, and it has repeatedly warned that it could block the strait if conflict with other nations escalates. Over the years, there have already been multiple incidents in this area. Oil tankers seized, ships attacked, drones shot down, military ships shadowing one another. At times, tensions have come dangerously close to boiling over. And because the strait is so narrow, there's very little room for error. Shipping lanes are only about 2 miles wide in each direction. That means hundreds of massive vessels are forced to pass through a tight, highly monitored corridor, right in the middle of a geopolitical hotspot. So what happens if something goes wrong? What happens if the Strait of Hormuz is blocked? The effects wouldn't be gradual, they would be immediate. Global oil supply would drop overnight. Markets would react within hours, and oil prices would surge, possibly faster than any other time in modern history. Because when supply drops suddenly and demand stays the same, prices don't just rise, they spike. But it doesn't stop there. Higher oil prices mean higher transportation costs. Higher transportation costs mean higher prices on goods, which leads to inflation, economic pressure, and in some cases, full-scale financial instability. Airlines would struggle, shipping companies would reroute, governments would step in, and consumers around the world would feel the impact almost immediately. Not in months, not in weeks, but in days. The Strait of Hormuz isn't just a stretch of water, it's a pressure point. A place where geography, politics, and global economics all collide at once. And as long as the world depends on oil, this narrow passage will remain one of the most important and most dangerous locations on the planet. Because sometimes the most powerful forces in the world aren't entire countries, but the narrow spaces between them. If you want to understand more stories like this, the decisions, the risks, and the moments that shape the world, stay here. There's always a deeper narrative.